Hello, I'm Kim Glanowski. I'm with Edenhope Academy's Writers Club, and I'm so glad that you joined me today to talk about ways to teach your child to write. So I started out 14 years ago teaching my oldest daughter how to write, and I used the program that was most available at the time. And the program that we used had a paragraph, and then you circled all the key words, the most important words, and then you wrote them down on a list. And then she took the list and she created her own paragraph with it. And after that, she added some words that made it sound more fancy. She deleted some words that didn't sound right. And once she was done with the final draft, then we had a checklist, or moms at the time had a checklist that they would go through and they'd say, and if she got it all right, then she got a good grade. But she hated it. Let me tell you, she complained and she whined and she moaned and she let me know that that was not her type of thing. And so I just kind of pushed her through it because she was the oldest and I had others behind her. But then my 12-year-olds came along and they were just moaning and complaining about it too. And so I was like, oh, goodness gracious. Writing should not be this way. Writing should be a pursuit of saying things to your reader, and it should be sharing with them. And I just was like, wow, boys, this shouldn't be something that's so torturous for you. And so I started to think, what do great writers have in common that this is not giving them? And it was passion. And passion is where you have something in your heart and you just want to give it to someone and you want to say, look what I've discovered, look what I found out. And it can be passion about anything. It could be a list of truck parts. It could be writing the way truck parts or parts of trucks are put together. It could be anything if you have passion about it, because that's what leads to greatness, is that passion. And the checklist just didn't give very much passion. So I started to think, so how can we have a writer's program that would encourage them to have passion? And so I started to get them to just write on their own. But it was terrible. It was really terrible. And they would just kind of drift off, and it was just like, that's not really working. And so then I realized that they didn't have a purpose. They didn't see that what they were doing was going to do any good beyond get a grade. And that didn't make much difference to them. So how do we give our students purpose? And so what I did was I told them, guys, you're going to write your own book and we're going to give it a Library of Congress number, which means that when you're a grandparent, you can go to the Library of Congress with your grandkids and say, look what Dad wrote when he was 12 years old. And it'll be there at the Library of Congress. And your grandparents today, they can order it from Amazon.com. And the guys were like, oh, that's cool, but they still didn't really get it. So we started working on it, and I started showing them how to develop characters. Well, that turned into their first book that my three youngest wrote together, and it's called John Mosby. Now, what they did was they wrote the text part of the book, and then they took photographs. And we used our awesome graphics design team at Edenhope Academy, and we put their photographs where they look like pictures. So we augmented them just a little bit to make them look nice like pictures. And then we developed a front cover and a back cover, and we had it listed on Amazon.com. So that, and getting this book in the mail, was what transformed our children and what really started Edenhope Academy Writers Club. So when your child comes to Writers Club and they sit down, it's a whole new world of learning. As we go through this book and we storyboard my children's first book. And so storyboarding is kind of like an outline. But I've got a very creative brain. I don't have a very concrete brain. And so all the denting and the unindenting and all of that of outlines just is way too much for my brain to handle. But when you storyboard, you can draw pictures, you can think about it, you can take notes on it. And what the students have from their Edenhope Academy Writers Club book are an outline of my kids' John Mosby book. And so it helps them to see the introduction of the characters. How are the characters introduced? What do they do first? How do they explore it? How do they get there? What happens in their story? What is the historical purpose of their story? And then how do they conclude it? So it's a great way to see how a story is put together by storyboarding. And then next, if you notice, we have not started writing paragraphs yet. The next thing the students do is they decide on a topic, and we choose historical people or events for our first 2 Eden Hope Academy books, because when we have history to follow, we have concrete facts, and so we try to stay with those concrete facts instead of fiction in our first 2 books. So after they've chosen their topic, then we sit around and we act like we're C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, because they would meet together in a pub in England and they would discuss their works, and they would develop their characters together, and them discussing and talking about it would bring passion to their work and would bring excitement to what they were doing. And so that's what we do at Eden Hope Academy. So we sit around in a group, or you can sit around with your children and talk to them about those characters. Now our students are always the main character of their first book, and we ask them to include their siblings. So then what we do is we roundtable discussion each child's book, and we start with that critical first paragraph. And so we take something that seems mundane. So most of the kids will come up with, they woke up, or they got out of bed, or something like that. And so we work on that, and we just grab those details from the kids. So one of the boys, who's one of my favorite, is Daniel, and he said, well, I woke up. And so the other kids around the round table were like, well, what's your bedroom like? And he's like, well, we have a bunk bed and then an extra bed. There are 3 boys. And so we said, well, are you in the top or bottom bunk? And so he said he was on the top. So we said, well, could you stretch and touch the ceiling and then pound to the floor, which would give everyone that knowledge that you were in a bunk bed without ever having to say it first? Or how could you say that his brother Nathan was very methodical? And we said, well, he could put out the 6 pieces of toast, 6 pieces of toast, and then 6 more pieces of toast, and then he could butter one side and jelly the other side and then put them all together. Instead of just saying he had a mathematical brain, he came up with a way to describe his brother that was interesting to the reader and showed his mathematical brain. So those roundtable discussions are priceless for your children, because what they do is it encourages them in their writing, and it shows them how they can describe it. So but as they're telling someone else how to describe their story, they're thinking, wow, I could do it myself. So that's a fantastic attribute of Eden Hope Academy's Writers Club. After the roundtable discussions, we work with them on storyboarding out their story, going along with the story that's already been written about John Mosby. And the reason we do that is because it gives structure to their story. After that, we help them a little bit with the research. We show them research tools. And then we have a week of photography. The students learn about looking at distance. They learn about the seeing exactly what they need to see, about perceiving things in photos, about lighting, about all of the different attributes of photography. And they go out and they take pictures for their books. And once they have their final draft together and their pictures, now I have a little secret for you with Eden Hope Academy. This is not public school. We are not concerned about plagiarism. Now, plagiarism by going and copying someone's work, absolutely not. That's cheating or stealing. That's not okay. But plagiarism of getting help from your parents or from your peers, that's just collaboration. And so we are all into collaboration, because really in the real world, they're going to be expected to collaborate. They're going to be expected to get ideas from each other. They're going to be expected to really understand and take ideas and use them. And they're not going to be told, oh, you shouldn't talk to anyone when you're working on an assignment. So yes, for school, it's not the best idea, but for real life, it is such a great way to learn how to collaborate well. And so we are all over real life at Eden Hope Academy, and that is what we are pursuing. So if a student peters out toward the end of their paper, we help them out. Because we know that once they see that finished product, something will transform in their brain. All of a sudden, your child will recognize himself as a published author. It is amazing to see the difference in our writers once they've gotten their first book on Amazon and once they've ordered it. All of a sudden, all of those fears, all of those insecurities about writing, all of those thoughts of I can't do it, they vanished. They absolutely vanish, and your child is ready to start their next book. One of my favorite parts of Eden Hope Academy is seeing the kids finishing up their books or getting close to finishing and ready for us to go ahead and tidy it up for them and get it out and put the great graphics and put it all together for them, and watching them say, you know, for the next book in my series or my next book is going to be about this, because they've lost all those inhibitions and they're ready to author their next book. So we really encourage you to check out our program. It's the Eden Hope Academy Writers Club. You can also order our great books from our kids. There'll be lists on our Facebook page, Eden Hope and Eden Hope Academy, of the books that our students have written to encourage your child that they can write too, that these are just ordinary homeschool children who are writing real books that are on Amazon in the Library of Congress, and you can order them today. So consider Eden Hope Academy Writers Club, because your child is an author, your child is ready to write a book, and we're ready to help them.